So I have no clue.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's because it goes up like an umbrella and comes down. So they always say put your router as high as you can. That's why you see them in ceilings in the commercial buildings.
Gotcha.
It actually falls.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Huh, that's interesting. I thought the floor would be a challenge, but so far, knock on wood, it hasn't been.
It can go down through things better than it can go up through things. That makes sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's good to
That
know.
does make sense.
Good evening.
Hey, Dr. Lamb.
How's everybody?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm excited to be here. I was giggling, but I got myself under control. I'm just so excited to get started back. I got to get my pen and paper out. Get old, you have to write stuff down or you forget it. So I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy. Got distressing news today that Dr. Jones, Betsy's got COVID.
Oh.
And so she seems to be doing well so far. She's in the early stages. So just flu-like right now. But prayers for her. Our School of Education, we've really taken a really big hit from the spring through the fall with COVID. And so we've lost, faculty's lost 2 mothers, a brother and a sister of the faculty, and we've had several folks. And so there's only, I think, 13 of us. And so that's pretty high rate. You know, one of our DEOL colleagues, who's in the group in front of y'all, Kim Roberts from Columbia, she lost her husband last semester. We were actually doing breakout groups for case studies, and her husband took ill and he died later that evening. He wasn't but 48. And so it's been a tough time. So I'm just hopeful that everybody kind of stays safe. It's kind of in most of us line of work, either, you know, nonprofits, public, private education. It's you know, this is the pretty high risk. I don't know the notion. I don't think there's such a thing as safely opening schools, whether it's K-12 or post-secondary. I don't believe that is. I don't believe that's possible. So when I hear that, I just kind of shake my head. Safe for who? The news in Charlotte yesterday says they have 2 outbreaks of COVID. And I think about 50 kids and about 100 teachers. And so that's not good. I had a note that somebody can't hear. It's on your end. I'm not muted. Everybody else can hear me, I'm guessing, other than Angie. Okay. So you'll need to look at your volume. Let's see. Yeah, everything's good on my end. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 6, 9, 11. I think we're expecting 14 tonight. Is that true? Okay, you can hear me now. Good. All right, so station 3, 6, 9, 11. So who else have we got? What time is it? I've got 7 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Hopefully we have a couple of others who will join us later on. I think 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have 6 in one cohort. Here comes another one. We have 6 in the in one cohort. The A's, we have AZ and CZ. We have the Charlotte campus and the Bowling Springs campus this semester, and y'all are together. There's 14 of us, all 14 of you, 15 counting me, all together. And so, welcome to DEOL 738. My introductory comment is my job this semester is not to teach you to be a quant, to be a geek. If you want to learn that, I will facilitate that if you want to get deeply into the calculus. But my job is to teach you to be able to collect and analyze data, and to do it as simply and as honestly and ethically as possible, and to be able to interpret and understand data. And to that end, we will be working in both qualitative and quantitative data this semester. Quantitative being numbers, how many. Qualitative being how good or how much. And so by the time that we get through this semester, or the plan is that we will have worked out your methodology. That is your final project, the methodology for your consultancy. And that's why I've told many of you, let's not get in a rush. We'll work through that this semester in terms of what data you will need to collect and how to analyze it. And so you will have 2 separate projects that together make your final project. One is qualitative, one is quantitative. We will all do a mixed methodology for our consultancy, where we collect and analyze both qualitative and quantitative data. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about our first case study in just a few minutes. And so what we will do to start with tonight, let me share my screen and we'll look at our agenda for the evening. Out of that, go to the course overview. So this is DEO 738. I'm Deol Lamb, Gardner-Webb. I am full-time faculty. I'm a professor in the School of Education. I am program coordinator for Master's Executive Leadership, and I am Jeff's faculty member in DEOL. And so here's all the things. And so for the CZ section, here are your group assignments. Group 1 for your case studies. China, English, Gerald and Johnson. Group 2, May, McNeil, Pittman, and Query. That's the CZ section. In the AZ section, your group assignments will be Davis, Harris, Hudson, and Martin. I don't think Barbie's going to join us, so it'll be Davis, Harris, and Martin, Rennie, Stewart, and Stein. That will be your group assignments for your case studies. We have 4 case studies due this semester, and I want to go ahead and look at those to begin with, and then we'll talk about the weekly schedule. I always have, it seems like I always have someone who has problems, a group understanding the directions. And so I'm going to click on case study materials. There are 4 case studies. See my hand? 4 case studies. All right. The first one says first. The second one says second. The third one says third. Now, the third one, I threw you a curveball here. You have a choice of these 3 different cases for your third case study. It is a data gathering case study, but there's 3 different ones. You pick one of the 3 and do it. That gives us a little variation. So that, of course, both groups, all 4 groups, there's 4 groups, 2 in each class. Y'all may pick the same one for all I know. But there's a little bit of variety there. And then there is the fourth. And so the first, second, and fourth case studies, everybody does the same one. On the third one, you have an option, your group, that you may find a burning passion in one of these three that you choose as your third one. Please do not just pick the third one because it says choice 3. Please do not think I have to do all 3. Please do not think I don't have to do that one since there's multiple ones there. I've had all of those. None of those are correct. The correct response here is pick one of the 3 and do the case study. I have a couple of things like conducting effective interviews. I have the rubric. I have how to analyze the case study. I have a PowerPoint from Dr. Hamilton. So let's look at those. All of those are contained right here. And so the first one is how to analyze a case study. He has put together a little PowerPoint. My suspicion is that if you have done case studies in other classes, you have seen this before or should have seen this before, about how to analyze a case study. And it's very short and to the point. Now, what you will have to do is, my suggestion to each of you is to read through the case study, and then the first person in each of those group assignments is the team leader. That person communicates with the other folks on the team and sets a time to Zoom with them in order to collaborate. I would create a community document either in PowerPoint or in Google Docs to collaborate for your presentation. Because on the nights that we have, or the afternoons, the mornings when we do our case study presentations, I'll expect a 15-minute presentation in a PowerPoint format where you will cover the parts of the case study. So you will have to collaboratively build that document. That is the expectation that I have for that morning. So I get all the time, well, what's the, well, the expectation is a PowerPoint presentation. You have to collaborate on your own. We don't do it in class. So that's why I'm starting with this tonight. So if we look at our course schedule, our spring weekly schedule, when we get together next on Saturday, January the 23rd, I will cover your consultancy project, your clinical shell, qualitative and quantitative projects, and we will do the IRB. And then on February 6th, your first case study 16, is due then. So you have from now until February 6th to come up with that. Now, I would recommend, in terms of after your group does a presentation and you all do your part, there's a half-page reflection of what you learned during the process. I would recommend you wait until after you present to write your reflection about what you learned. It's not very likely. You might learn something from me that day during the case study or from one of your colleagues that might be relevant to your reflection. Now, your reflection can encompass the process. You know, I worked with a bunch of people who didn't do a good job, or we all collaborated well. What I learned from collaborating, or it might be about the content of the case study. That I learned that, when you're a nonprofit and you have to go to different funding agencies, they have different metrics for success. That's going to be your first case study. A metric is how to measure and then how much. For example, if you're running a nonprofit and you're getting money from a county or a city or a governmental agency, they're going to want quantitative data. How many people did you serve? If you're getting money from privates and grants and philanthropists, they want to know how well you served them, qualitative data, how well you served your clients. And so what we hope to learn from our case study is both that we have to be able to set up qualitative and quantitative measures, data measures, and then analyze and present that data. The example that I will give you is a real life example where I was asked recently to sit in on a doctoral dissertation presentation. And the the research question was the efficacy or the effectiveness of a teacher workshop on math concepts for elementary school teachers. So the whole point of the in-service development, staff development was to teach math to elementary school teachers through this workshop. And so the point of the study was to determine the effectiveness of that math staff development for these elementary school teachers. It was a large district in the Piedmont Triad. They had 1,100 elementary teachers. They broke them down into 44 groups of 25 and ran them through 25 at a time. Now, you can unmute yourself. What would you think in a quantitative sense, numbers would be a measure that you would want to know about that could give us a clue as to the effectiveness or efficacy of that training? What number would you want to know? If you were the person paying for this, what would you want to know?
Test scores?
Test scores. We don't do staff development for the good of the group and just to entertain teachers. The whole point of us spending money on staff development is because we want math scores to go up. That's kind of a duh, as we call it in our business. We want math scores. All right, so that would be one thing. Now, on a qualitative sense, the quality of it, what might we want to know from the actual participants, that 1,100 teachers? What might we want to know from them?
Maybe how they change their teaching style after the training?
Did they enjoy it? Did they understand it? Did it inform your practice? We'd want to ask them some qualitative type questions like that. So if I were going to try to assess the efficacy or the effectiveness of that staff development, I'd want to know, did it improve test scores on the quantitative side, and on the qualitative side, did it inform practice? Did the teachers enjoy it? Did they get something out of it? Did it pique their interest? Did it make them more interested in teaching math or math itself? Those would be the kind of things that I would want to know. Now, that's mixed methodology, quantitative and qualitative. Now, I've got two hands held this far apart, pretty wide. You can see my head between them. But the reason I do that is this. We never do this. We cannot mix methodologies ever. We might call it mixed methodology, but that does not mean that we mix how we collect and analyze our data. We do one, we do the other. We bring them back together at the end, and we use them to compare one against the other in what we call a convergent design. Convergent means they're apart and then they come back together, like yield, that's convergent. And so we can't mix our methodology. There are rules for data collection and analysis on each side of the aisle. There are specific rules, ethical rules that we have to follow. We cannot mix those together. We have certain criteria. How you collect your data determines how you can analyze it, and then how you can then generalize those findings. So I walk into this dissertation, and this person, in order to determine or make a determination about the efficacy or the effectiveness of this entire program of training 1,100 teachers in math concepts, her entire methodology consisted of talking to 5 of her friends about how much they enjoyed it. I wish I could make that up. You can't make this up. That was her entire methodology. Do you think that you could talk to 5 people, even if they weren't your friends, and get us any sense of the quality of a program if you were making a funding decision? Why, of course not. But that's the kinds of things that you will see that happen in businesses all the time, where there's nobody enforcing the rules. There's no methodologist on staff that says, but wait a minute, I have a question. You know, so part of the notion here that what I'm trying to teach you, I'm going to teach you all the dirty tricks with the notion that you won't use them, but that you will know when somebody is doing them to you, when somebody is putting their thumb on the scale and misleading you, that you will understand what they are doing and why they are doing it. I'm not teaching you all these bad things so that you can go out and now do them. You know, that's kind of the whole, the conceptual framework of this course is I will teach you all the you know, how to thump the numbers so that you won't do that, but you will know that when somebody is thumping the numbers on you. And so you will need to be able to conduct qualitative work and quantitative work ethically and know what the rules are about it and know why that you have to do that. And so in your first case study, the CAN, it's an organization in Texas. It's a clearinghouse for nonprofits. And one of the things that you'll have to, that you'll, as you work through the case study, you'll have to see, you'll have to develop quantitative metrics, how many, and qualitative, how well, to satisfy the different funding agencies. And that's pretty much through all of your nonprofit work, all the work that you do, schools, nonprofits, governmentals, is you're going to have to collect qualitative and quantitative. And you're going to have to know how to do that, how to analyze it, what's appropriate to analyze it. For example, you can't do an analysis of variance to survey data because survey is people's opinion. Analysis of variance is there has to be a right answer. If I ask you a question, you don't have to give me the right answer on a survey. It's just your opinion. So we can't do an analysis of variance. We can do a chi-square where we report the frequency of we can do a frequency distribution that shows how many people answered this question. So we feel like that's probably the right answer, but in a survey format, there's not a right answer. Chi-square simply compares the results of what you got against a hypothetical normal distribution so that you just understand that your group wasn't an outlier group, you know, that they were a normal distributed population. That's all we can do. Those are, I know that's kind of went past your head, but the whole point is those are some of the rules that we will learn this semester about quantitative data, how we can handle it. We'll learn how to do linear regressions, prediction equations, where we can look at dependent variables or independent variables and how they contribute to a dependent variable. If we know these things, and we'll learn, you know, the dangers of anecdotal. I mean, just like, we'll learn double loop theory, and we'll learn, you know, the dangers of making an assumption on causality when there's only maybe a slight correlation or association. We'll learn all those terms. We'll start those next Saturday when we start. We'll start working through some of these concepts. But you've got to be able to understand those. You know, so, you know, my story for anecdotal is always is I watch birds fly and I wonder, well, what makes a bird fly? And I saw them all drinking water. So I came up with this hypothesis that drinking water will make you fly. So I took Brad up on the roof and I made him drink a gallon of water and I threw him off and told him to fly. He hit the ground. I went down and I picked him up. I took him back up on the roof and I made him drink 2 gallons of water this time. I threw him off again. That's what we commonly refer to as the double loop theory. That's Chris Argers from Harvard. There is actually no correlation there. We came up with this anecdotal notion because we saw all birds drinking water, that drinking water is what makes you fly. And we don't assess whether what we're doing works. And when it doesn't work, we'd always just double down and do twice as much of it. Or, you know, the years that I worked in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, we had the double loop theory where we doubled down on things that didn't work, but we also had Lamb's triple loop theory, which is commonly referred to as the theory of stupidity, when we hired more people to do the same thing over and over again and got the same results, which is the double loop theory is commonly called the theory of insanity. Those are some concepts. Those are statistical concepts, though. And we can actually measure those concepts. I will teach you that, hopefully, or you will learn those concepts as we go through, that we have to be able to assess adequately, accurately, and honestly if things work or not. Just more of it won't always fix the problem. If we have anecdotally come up with correlations that don't really exist, like drinking water makes you fly. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to be working on this semester through the quantitative. Qualitative, quantitative comes from a validated measure. There is a right answer. It's a test question. Qualitative comes from interviews, observations, and documents. We'll learn where that data comes from, how we can treat it, how we can analyze it. Survey data is actually quantitative, but since there's no right answer, we are limited in the analysis we can do. And there's rules in terms of return rate and survey and all those things, and we'll go through that as we go this semester. But for our first case study, what we need to understand is we're going, you'll really do most of your work after our first meeting, but you'll get planned and prepared, read your case study, schedule your meetings, like to do that a week in advance, looking at your schedule. So after we have our first class, you can then begin to dive in and say, all right, what quantitative would these people need to know? What metrics should we set up? What qualitative, so that we can satisfy both of our funding sources, the people that are interested in how many we serve and the folks who fund us that are interested in how well we serve. And so that's basically, so again, you can't mix them together. You have to look at them always separately. And so, but that's what you're going to be doing in your first case study. Nobody has left so far. Nobody's quit. Just, we're doing well if nobody's quit so far. So back to the shared screen. All right. So again, next Saturday, the 23rd, we're going to cover terms, consultancy project, qualitative and quantitative, the actual. I've gone ahead and pulled those up tonight, but we probably won't get to them. And we'll also do CITI. Now, the CITI, I've already talked to you about this, but let me reiterate. You, for your consultancy project, will not have to file an IRB form with Gardner-Webb. That takes forever. And if you make any changes or adjustments to it, you have to go back and start the process all over again, which is not good for us because our projects change all the time. We sometimes change where we're doing our projects. We change who we're partnered with. I mean, that would really be a really hard thing for us. And so we have a process using your Gardner-Webb email login with CITI. You'll go in and do 17 modules, and I'll lead you through those that afternoon, get you started in them. It takes 4 to 6 hours to complete them. And if you haven't already done that, some of you already have, once you have your certificate, you will not have to file an IRB form with Gardner-Webb's graduate school, which takes about a year to get through. You will not have to do that. But the whole idea of IRB is the ethical treatment of data and participants in any research that you do. Again, following the rules, being ethical, being honest. That's what IRB is about. It's Institutional Review Board. That protects the people and the organizations that you work with. That's what that's for. And so we will do that in that first week. All right. So there's our weekly schedule. You can follow down our weekly schedule, what we'll be doing each week. I have those materials under each of the menu items here. Just like tonight's menu item, here are the things I'm covering tonight. The agenda, introductions, class schedule, Blackboard menu review, case study notes, and final project notes. But each week I have all the materials that you will need for what we'll be doing that week. I would review it before we met. I would think that would be good. I have handbooks. I have discussion board. As you work through each of the chapters of each of your 5 books, you will answer discussion board questions. We have tests that go along with certain parts of the course as well. Salkind tests are over here. We start in quantitative. Royce is program evaluation. There are no tests for Merriam, our qualitative book. You have to answer discussion board questions on it. And I have makeup activities if you miss a session. All these things are over here, and they're fairly self-explanatory. All the materials, all the case studies, drop boxes, everything is built out. Everything, I don't hide anything. You can see it all tonight. It might be overwhelming, but we'll do that. I'll remind you that we don't use the 739 shell that goes with consultancy for this. You use my shell that says consultancy lamb. It's built out like Jeff wants it to be built out, and you follow through that process on it. Okay. Now, back to the weekly schedule, because this is a question I always get. What's required? So for assignments, you got to do all your discussion boards. You got to answer all those questions, and they're fairly short answers. You have to take the 25 question test on introduction to statistics from chapter 1. You got to do that test, and you got to do your 10 question Excel test. You got to take that one. Everybody's got to take those. Now, see that lovely blue color right there? After that, all of your Salkine tests, after that, getting down into the weeds of statistics, if you want to take them, you can. There's no penalty. There's no requirement. You can take them to see how you're doing. That's why it says optional. Guess what optional means? It means optional. That means you can take them if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm not trying to train you to be a quant. If you want to learn statistics at a very deep level, I'll be right here with you. But if you don't, after you get through the introductory, which is mostly about terms and concepts and how to, basically the difference between a formula and a function in Excel, after that, it's all of the Salkine after that are all optional. Now, the discussion boards are not optional. The Royce test is not optional. But the Salkine after the initial 2 are. So make sure that you understand that. Now, the final exam is a 20 question. It's a 20 question exam. It's fairly easy. You'll take it at the end. It doesn't count one way or the other, but it is required that you take it. It's the 20 things that I think you ought to know if you took it to be an educated person. If you've taken this course, there's 20 things that you should know. I can take it in 3 or 4 minutes and get all 20 of them right. And I'm old. Can't remember, I've got that memory disease. I can't remember anything, but it's not calculus. Which methodology emphasizes objective measurements and statistical, mathematical, numerical analysis of data collected through test polls, questionnaires, and surveys? That would be quantitative. Very simple. Which methodology consists of participant observation, interviews, focus groups, or documents? That would be qualitative. Not hard stuff. What means that a result from a test or experiment is not likely to occur randomly by error or chance, but is instead to be attributable to the specific cause? That would be significance. It's just that simple. These are the big rocks for this course. I'm not going to ask you to sit and calculate things using calculus. I want you to know what stuff means and the big concepts. Results from testing or experimenting that are statistically significant can be strong or weak. In general, the larger the effect size they have, you're more likely that the difference will be meaningful. Because something is significant doesn't mean it's meaningful. Statistical significance just speaks to, did you make an error in your methodology? For some reason, one of the biggest scams in the business is when we say something is significant. Everybody thinks, well, that means it's important. No, it just speaks to your error, that you believe that that statistically that there's less than 5% chance of what you've arrived at is due to error. That's all significance is. It speaks to your error, the beta. Meaningful means, yeah, we ought to spend money on this. We'll cover that in depth in our first meeting. Though, if you can get those two concepts, you've got most of this course. The 4 questions that I've answered so far, if you understand qualitative, quantitative, the difference between significance and meaningful, you got the big rocks of this course whipped. Significance just speaks to your technique, not to how important what you found was. Meaningful speaks to that. An educated guess is a hypothesis. We call it a swag, actually. SWAG. That stands for stupid, wild ass guess. What explores the question, how do I know that the test scale instrument that I use works every time? That would be reliability. Is it reliable? Does it work the same in Murphy as it does in Manio? Does it work the same with this group of people as it does that group of people? And then the question, how do I know that the test scale or instrument I use actually measures what it's supposed to do? That would be validity. Is it a valid measure? I'm wearing a watch tonight. It's a really good measure of time. It's not good at all for weight, thank goodness, or it'd be broken. So you say, well, is that watch a validated measure? Yeah, it is. It is a validated measure, but it's only for time, not for weight. And so we have to know there's 7 different types of validity. We have to know is the instrument we're using measuring what we intend for it to measure. That would be validity. So we're adding more. We've got qualitative, quantitative. We've got significant and meaningful. And now we've got reliability of our instruments. Do they work the same every time? And do they measure what we claim that they're going to measure? So again, these are the big rocks. And then we have measures of central tendency. You know these, mean, median, and mode. That's standard throughout mathematics. And so which one of these is not a measure of central tendency? That'd be standard deviation. A normal or Gaussian distribution, that would be the bell-shaped curve. That's what that's called. We all know what that is. A correlation is a measure of strength of the relationship between 2 variables. The statistical term is defined as relationship to random variables that make them statistically dependent. Refers to rather a general relationship without specifics being mentioned, not necessarily be causal. All right, so which one of those is? It refers to rather a general relationship. That would be called an association. That's weaker than a correlation. It's just general. We use that in qualitative terms. Quantitative, we're looking for correlation. When we do qualitative methodology, we're looking for association. When interested in examining how one variable changes in relation to the other, the following descriptors which you want to use. We want to use correlation. And one changes if a positive correlation means if I add more of one thing, I get more of the other. If I add more food, I get more weight. Then there are things that have a negative correlation. If we add more of one thing, we get less of the other. If I add more exercise, I get less weight. That would be called a negative correlation. But the strength is, whether it's positive or negative, and correlation is on the scale of -1 to +1, it doesn't matter. A -4 correlation is stronger than a -0.4 is stronger than a +0.2. Again, it's the actual relative on the scale of 0 to 9, the strength of that relationship, whether it's positive or negative. So because we want some things, if we add more, we get less. And other things, if we add more, we want more. And so correlation, that's what it speaks to, is that relationship. If I add more of one thing, will it make more of the other thing that I want, or will it make less of that thing that I don't want? And we measure that relationship on the scale of -0 point, -1 to +1, 0, 1 to +1. And so we have a positive correlation or a negative. But that's what we're looking at in relationship to variables. What's the average distance from the mean? That'd be a standard deviation. What is standard deviation squared? That'd be the variance. What is the collection of statistical models used to analyze the difference among group means and their associated procedures, such as variation between groups, developed by a statistician and evolutionary biologist Fisher? That would be analysis of variance. You'll learn how to do it in ANOVA. What is used to determine the extent was there a linear relationship? That would be a linear regression. And I will show you a linear regression. EVOS used in public schools is the biggest linear regression. But the biggest linear regression in the world is Match.com, where we take all these variables that we know about you and try to find you a mate. That's all Match.com is a linear regression. Somebody figured out, aha, I can do a linear regression, sell it to stupid people and get them mates, and they'll find other stupid people. Billions of dollars later, still going strong. Largest linear regression in the world, Match.com. In a study, a sample is drawn from a larger population. And what we're trying to do is we can't go ask everybody in that population what they think. So we take a sample of that population and we correctly and ethically sample them, and then we generalize our finding from that sample to the larger population. We can't survey everybody in the world, and so that's how we do it. In a study, a sample is drawn from a larger population at random and seemed to be representative of that population is referred to as a random sample. When I talked earlier about the lady, she was going to go ask 5 of her friends what they thought. Was that a random sample? No. That would be called a convenience sample. What are the 4 levels of measurement? Interval, ordinal, ratio, nominal. So where's that one? Nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio, right there. Those are the 4 levels of measurement. That's where most scoundrels do most of their manipulation. Is they make you assume things that aren't really there by picking one of those that's inappropriate for what they're reporting. The foundation of inferential statistics, of course, is probability. And let's see, save and submit. The following may be incomplete. Number 16, I missed it. Okay, let me go back to 16. All right, and so I completed 19 of them, and I didn't do number 16, whatever it was. And so it's just that simple. This is not rocket science, folks. If I can work through them. When tallying and representing how often scores occur, type of daily illustration that would be a frequency histogram or a chi-square with frequency distribution or frequency histogram. That would be the answer to that question. Again, there is no right answer on survey. We can only report how many times scores occur. But you can see, if you can follow through this stuff that I just went through, this is the whole course. Understanding those concepts, it's relatively simple stuff. This is not hard. We could make it hard, but there's no need to make it hard. We want to make it where you understand it, you get it, it's fun. You can make data work for you. So let's take one of these and look at it. 4 levels of measurement. How can you manipulate the 4 levels of measurement to get to make something appear different than it actually is? So this is my favorite example. In golf, there was a period of time when Tiger Woods was #1 in the world. And every week when the PGA Tour would come on TV on Sunday, they would promote this big competition between Tiger and Phil Mickelson. They were #1 and #2. Will Phil overtake Tiger this week? They were using their level of measurement that they were using was order 1, 2, 3, 4. Tiger was 1, Phil was 2. And your assumption was because Tiger and Phil were 1 and 2 that they were close in points, and that there was actually a competition to see who would be number 1 in golf next week. What they should have been reporting was interval. Tiger was number 2 and Tiger was 1 and Phil was 2, but the interval between them was several million points, to the point where when Tiger's wife 9-ironed him and he ran into the tree, he didn't play golf for 3 years. He stayed number 1. He was so far ahead, he stayed at number 1 for 3 years and never picked up a club. There was really no competition there, but they didn't want to say every week when golf came on, no need to watch this week because Tiger's 1 million points ahead. They reported their competition ordinarily as 1 and 2. So you assumed incorrectly that there was an actual competition every week. If they had reported and shown the actual scores, Tiger has 1,200,000 points. The next closest person has 150,000 points. He's more than 1 million points away. He could not play literally not play for 3 years and still be number 1. How many people would stay tuned that were not lovers of golf, that were the casual followers of golf that golf was trying to attract? Now, they didn't tell you that you know they were deceiving you. They let you deceive yourself. That's part of the ethics of statistics and of research. Is many times we will say this is a significant finding. Well, you assume that this is important. This is real. We ought to fund that. All you're saying is I didn't make any errors. And it's not really meaningful. You know, we spent $1 million and scores went up 1 point, but it was statistically significant. Well, that just means there was no error. Was it worth $1 million for 1 point? No. Wasn't a meaningful difference. Those are the kinds of things that people around you do all the time. Unfortunately, that's become our public discourse. Is I get what I want through deceit and half truths and sometimes truths and those kinds of things. Organizations fail because of that, because people don't tell the truth, because it's not in their self-interest to do that. And so, you know, the thing that you must take away from all of the things that you learned this semester is the least reliable form of data is self-report. Anything that you self-report or that could gore your ox or has direct implications for you and your well-being, that's the least reliable form of data. And so you don't have to tell people, I think you're lying to me, but you need to know when they are. I'm not saying that we need to accost and kick over every anthill and set everybody on fire every day, but you got to keep from getting roasted yourself. It's a tough world out there. If you don't know your numbers, you won't make it. No matter what business or what enterprise you're involved in, if you don't know your numbers, your real numbers, not what you want them to be or you think they ought to be, or what somebody, you know, in the back room tells you they are, if you don't know your numbers as a leader of an organization, then you will not make it. Your organization will not make it. Because your number one goal as a leader of an organization, remember this is a leadership discipline, is to keep your organization alive. That's your number one goal. And if you don't know your numbers, not only will you not survive, your organization won't survive either. And it's hardly ever in anybody's self-interest to give you numbers that aren't positive, that cast them in a bad light. Self-report, least reliable form of data. You've got to know when somebody's pulling your leg. You've got to know what your numbers are. You've got to know how to collect your data, how to analyze it, and then what to do about it. That's the whole point of this course. If you can get those concepts, we've knocked it out of the park. I'm going to pause and catch my breath now and get some of this Diet Orange soda. It's time for questions now.
So I think Angie had a question, or I could go first. Angie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, you go first. because I got to remember my question.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand for Saturday, the 23rd, for the discussion board, both the discussion boards, they're all clearly labeled under that tab. We just need to answer all of them. Do we need to respond to classmates, or we'll do that during class?
We'll talk about it during class. I do no forced responses. I don't care if you read anybody else's or respond to them or not.
Okay, so we'll do our own response.
If you want to read everybody
We'll
else's
wait and talk during
responses, you
class.
can.
And
And
then
we'll talk about 'em.
for our other textbook, this Royce textbook. Okay. And then it says Royce Chapter 2 PowerPoint. Obviously, I will read Chapter 2. Is there a PowerPoint that you'll go over, or is it already pre-posted?
It's already
in
there. That's it.
Blackboard?
You just open it up, look at it, look at that PowerPoint. That Royce
Okay.
Chapter 2 PowerPoint is there. Let's go back to that. Share screen. All right. So under the materials for that week,
Ooh, and actually, while you're there, the Good to Great, we read that a couple classes ago. Do we
Right.
need to reread anything, or just?
No, that's going to take about 30 seconds to talk about good to great. You know, you start with the end in mind. We're done. All right. We might talk about hedgehog, but nothing specific there. Let's see. There's Royce right there. Royce can be found under, let's see, Chapter 2 can be found right here. Right there. Why'd I have you look at that one? Yeah, ethical issues and program evaluation, institutional. If you don't understand IRBs, you just look at this, and this is we'll cover it later on, but if you don't understand why you're doing IRB, here's a PowerPoint that explains the entire process. And I don't read PowerPoints, and so that's why I have it. So you just refer to Royce, the Chapter 2 one. I can actually copy this one into that same one, but if you're having issues or questions about why I'm doing IRB or what the whole point or the process is, or why do we do this, this explains the entire process. It's about IRBs, and that's what we'll be covering that afternoon. And so I'll expect that if you have questions, you can just read this PowerPoint. I'm figuring maybe incorrectly, but I figure probably all of you can read. That's kind of the baseline. So I don't do a lot of that kind of stuff. I just refer you to the materials. And so when I have PowerPoints, I am not going to read the PowerPoints to you during class. I'm going to just be on a rant for about 30 minutes at a time, like I was tonight, sweating, and might even use profanity every now and then. And at the end of the rant, what we hope is when we go back and look at the PowerPoint, doggone, he covered every one of those things in that PowerPoint, in that rant. I just kind of rant from for periods of time from 30 to 45 minutes until I have to catch my breath. And then we hope that we've covered that PowerPoint. But no, I won't sit and read them to you. But that PowerPoint reference is for IRB that's there. That's a good question.
So in the shell, it was sent the South contest, like chapters 1, 1A, those are required tests.
Again, go back to your, let me move this out of the way. Again,
Because you had some that are optional, but then
yes,
there are others that are required.
Again, look at the weekly schedule.
Okay.
Weekly schedule over on assignments tells you which ones are required and which ones are optional. So first one is Salkine introductory test. That one would be required. The Excel test from Salkine, that one would be required as well. That's a little 10-question Excel test that's in there. The next one that comes up, chapters 1 through 5 or 2 through 6, that one would be optional. 6 through 10, that one would be optional. And so Salkind 14, 15, 17, 21, that one would be optional as well. So all you have to do is look at this and tells you which ones. And so two of the Salkinds are required, the other 5, but the other 3 are optional on Salkind. If
Okay.
it's not in blue, you have to do it. And it says optional, and I've got it in blue as well. That's a good question. So if we go back and look at let me move this out of the way. So if we go back and look at the Salkind test, if we open those up, the Salkind test, this one's required, this one's required, the others down through here are not. Just the first 2 are required. And they're automatic. You take them as many times as you want to take them. Again, this is, the Salkind test, again, is, this is the introductory stuff, and this is, can you use Excel? Because we use Excel for analysis rather than SPSS. Very good. Now, all discussion boards are required, but again, there's a lot of them, but the way that we save time is you don't have to read or respond to anybody else's. I'm interested in what you know. And it's kind of like, I worry about if you read somebody else's, we can kind of go veer off out into, could go wrong a little bit. And so, yes, we have a good many of them, but you're not going to have to read other people's posts and respond to them, which cuts about, for every post, that about 80% of the time is saved by not doing that. And so just like the first one in Salkind chapter 1, why might the study of statistics be important in your field? I mean, in what you do for a living, why would statistics be important to you? What use do they have? Why would somebody prefer mode over mean or median to describe a data set central tendency? Well, we want to know how many people, at a particular score, not the average score, and something that we're interested in, how many people scored this particular number, whatever that would be in your field. Why is standard deviation an unbiased estimate? Because it's just a function of the scores itself. It just asks you some of those kinds of things. It's just the average distance from the mean. And we subtract 1 from the denominator, and that makes it an unbiased estimate. Degrees of freedom used for it tells us how big the sample was, how much faith we ought to put in something. Was this data from 2 people or 222 people? That's what degrees of freedom speaks to. These are simple things. Chi-square in the real world, we just make sure that the group that we gather data on is not an outlier group. That goes back to the election of 1972, is the example on that one that's used commonly in statistics. In 1972, McGovern ran against Nixon. Nixon won all 50 states. Largest landslide in history. McGovern didn't even win his own state. He lost all 50 states at the Electoral College. And so there was a pundit on TV said, I don't understand that. Said, everybody I know voted for McGovern. Well, he lived in Greenwich Village in New York, the most liberal town or community in the world. Was Greenwich Village in 1972 in New York City? Was that representative of the country as a whole? No, that was an outlier community. And so his data, because he didn't have a random distribution, a normal population, he had a specific outlier population that he was looking at. His sample for everybody he talked to was skewed because that was not a normal population of people. If you wanted to get an idea of how people voted, you would ask people from all different kinds of communities, a more random group of people. He used a convenience sample. Convenience samples rarely are random. We call them convenience samples because guess what? They're convenient. He talked to people working when he was at home and at work, walking to the bus stop or whatever, or getting in his car. He just talked to people along the way who were convenient to him. But that doesn't mean that they are a normal distributed population. They were an outlier group. And so what chi-square does when we collect data from a group and we don't have a control group or a sample group, we just have one group like where you work or where you're going to do your consultancy, we compare that data to the theoretical model of a normal distribution to make sure that you didn't collect data from an outlier group. Something that simple. We're trying to, we're imposing these restrictions upon ourselves because we want our data as clean and as accurate as possible, because we really want to know our numbers. We don't want to delude ourselves. Every morning when I get up and I go by the mirror, I'm just shocked, who's that old man in my house? I woke up one day and I was old. And so, but if I had a self-concept in my head of what I look like, I still think I look 25. So my self-report would not be accurate at all on the data on how I look. Even though I see myself in the mirror every day, it's still we all have this mental image. And it kind of crystallizes at, 25 or 30 years of age. And, no matter how old you get, you still think, oh, who's that old bald-headed man in my house?
Okay, I got 2 more questions, comments for you. One has nothing to do with the class. So I'm pretty sure these polls from the Senate races probably threw you, didn't it? Since
no. Remember, polls are based on what?
Opinion.
Self-report. So you can't ever trust polls. Never. Never.
So why use them?
Because we got to have something to talk about on TV. Otherwise, we just sit and look at one another. What do you think? Well, I think this. What do you think? Basically, they're just made up data. They're not real because they're self-report. The real data comes when people actually go in the booth and vote. And so polls are not an outcome variable. They're a process variable. We'll learn the difference between those along the way. Just like colleges, Gardner-Webb chief among them, and I love Gardner-Webb, but now, all colleges, practice deception upon themselves. They look at the number of applications and think that that's going to influence the number of people who actually, enroll. The number of people who apply is just a process variable. The number of people who actually enroll is an outcome variable. That's what we're interested in. And we think because people applied that they would, if we accept them, they'll come. No. And we think when we ask people who they voted for that they told us the truth. No, that's not true either. Self-report. And so polls are, I spent a year with Gallup learning qualitative because I was a quantitative person. My postdoc was in quantitative, and so I spent a year with Gallup learning qualitative, and people lie to you. And one of the things that Gallup tries to teach you is how to determine to be a perceiver, how to determine when people are lying to you when you're interviewing them. But no, polls are, they are, woefully, inaccurate always because it's self-report.
Okay. Are we going to be working with any statistical software other than Excel? Will it be the analytics or Minitab or something like that?
Nope, we're only going to use Excel for the purposes of this course. Now we'll use Qualtrics. We will use Qualtrics because everybody has a Qualtrics account. We'll use it for survey, and then it can do analysis for you inside of Qualtrics. So more than likely what we'll use rather than Excel will be Qualtrics. And so I will cover Qualtrics for you a little bit later on. But our book, the Salkind book, is based off Excel, and we would like for you to be able to use formulas and functions because that's most common in what you'll do every day at your work site. And as a leader, you'll need to be able to analyze and do a little analysis using spreadsheets. But we will, 99% of our analysis will be through Qualtrics. Like say, if you want to use the Denison survey, I've already got it loaded. and got it set up the way it's supposed to be done. That'll give you where we can analyze it the correct way in the quadrants of 4. But yeah, we'll use Qualtrics. We can send out surveys. We can analyze the fill in the blank, and we can analyze the open-ended qualitatively. We can do the quantitative numbers, how many people answered this way. We can do our frequency distribution. We can do chi-square. We can do all of that through Qualtrics. It does it automatically for you. It's really easy to use. And so most of you will not ever use Excel for analysis, and I won't go very deeply into that. We just need for you to make sure that you're basically competent using Excel, because that's the industry standard now. And in what you folks do, the only people that use SPSS are dissertation writers anymore. And since none of you are writing a dissertation, we felt it was a lot better to have you learn some basic functions and formulas in Excel. That's a great question. Qualtrics is what we'll use. And it's really, really easy to use. I'll help you with it. I'll work with you. Half of you are my consultancy. The other half, you're not going to, I'll work with you anyway. And so going forward, doing your methodology, you'll work with me and we'll use Qualtrics. And it'll be so easy, it'll just be like falling off a log. All right, my hour is up. If you have more questions, I'll continue with those, but I would like for all of you to, again, I know most of you, but tell me again, so that because we're putting 2 classes together, if you'll tell us who you are and what you do, anything about yourself, nothing too personal. Remember, I'm an old Baptist. But tell us, I just got through with, I had Brad's wife, Lisa, with me last semester. I wasn't teaching her statistics. I was trying to teach her law. I don't know, I did a very good job at it, but I tried to. Last semester, she was in our doctoral EDCI cohort last semester, and we really had a great time. What a good bunch. So Brad, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm the law person. She can't do the law. She's the educator. She doesn't like the law. But yeah, Brad Stewart. My wife is a teacher too. I teach right now. Got a background in law enforcement, but I started teaching last year for a career change. So my consultancy project is still on law enforcement and law enforcement leadership. Is what I did my master's thesis on. So that's what I sort of still gear all my research for. I teach criminal justice at Guilford College too. So sort of still stay in that realm. Even though I teach government at a high school level, I still sort of stay in that public administration world. Not really too good at the high school education thing. It's a little hard to fit in sometimes, just because of my background, I guess. But I'm trying. It's challenging, but that's about it.
Well, welcome. As we will use examples this semester, we kind of go back and forth from higher ed to K-12 ed to nonprofits, police, fire, public, public policy. It all kind of, but many of the rules and are pretty much the same, and the numbers, the metrics, the funding, all of those, all nonprofits kind of fall within that, inside of that. And so we'll kind of straddle both worlds, both education and other public policy and nonprofit areas as well. So we'll depend on you to help us when we get in some of those areas. So again, welcome. Vic?
Hey, everybody. I'm Vic Devine, and I am a principal of an elementary school in Clover, South Carolina. And my consultancy project is teacher retention through collective leadership. And I am kind of nervous about this class, but I think you've calmed some of my fears. I was thinking of it highly statistical. I mean, formulas and working it. And so I feel a lot better.
Good. We'll do a little bit of that, but obviously if I can do it, you can. I mean, I'm always the bad example. So you'll make it. It won't be that, it'll be as heavy on that as you want it to be, but the more important as you tell, it will be the concepts. So it'll be good. Jonathan? Jonathan, we ain't got any volume on you.
How about now?
Now we got some volume on you.
So Jonathan Davis, I'm a Chief Information Officer for Cleveland Community College. Prior to that, I taught there for about a decade in the IT program. My project is a project to increase online quality online course initiative.
Pardon me, I didn't mean to laugh out loud.
It is interesting. I do have some good news to report on that front. All of our instructors who went through the mentors that have gone through the first quality course initiative, we at the same time submitted those that were completed to Quality Matters, and it looks like many of them passed on the first round, meaning they didn't require any remediation at all.
That's great.
Scores in the high 90s. And some got really stickler review boards. And the things that were pointed out were things that were wrong, and all the other people
didn't exist. Yeah, that's what happened when I went through it the first time. Yeah.
It's pretty wild. It really depends on who you get. But
yeah.
Those faculty are working through their changes, and we expect those to pass as well without a problem.
Well, I'm being familiar with your project, I know, but I tell people all the time, they ask me, what's the secret to teaching online? I said, if you haven't taken and passed Quality Matters, then you're wasting your time. If you don't learn how to build courses, and how to set your courses up and do those things, because teaching online, you become the guide on the side rather than sage on the stage. And really the quality of what you do is much dependent upon the quality of the shell you build for your class and the content that you use. And so when you said you're trying to improve online teaching quality, I work at an institution that doesn't even require Quality Matters. It's optional. And we have maybe 5% of the faculty that have done it. And we wonder why they're not, that the online teaching is not getting rave reviews. And so that's why, you get into things, get out what you put in. That's pretty much the way it works in the data world. All right, Angie.
I am Angela Martin. I'm a regional quality manager for Hickory Springs Manufacturing. So I do use Excel a lot. I really don't use Mean Mode and Median a lot, but I do use Excel a lot. My consultancy projects both have fallen through. I started out at CVCC and it fell through because of the pandemic. And then I wanted to do a homeless project. No one would see me because of the pandemic. So now I'm working with one of my managers who's got a list but it's just a list of projects. And, so we're going to have another discussion this week about how they need to be a project instead of a list of projects he wants me to do. But now my issue is now I am in self-quarantine because I came in contact with someone that was affected. Got a positive result from coronavirus. So now I'm in self-quarantine until my test results come back. So thrown off another week.
Oh, Lord. Well, prayers for you. And again, it's not, you've still got 4 more courses after this one. So it's not critical time yet. So just understand that it doesn't get critical for another semester or so. So we'll just, pray for you and hope things work out.
Yeah.
Wayne?
Hey, I'm Wayne Mave. I teach biology at Forsyth Tech in Winston-Salem. Um, been there for, I guess, 3 years, and before that I taught in Guilford County Schools for a year. Um, and I guess consultancy-wise, I'm working at Forsyth Tech trying to, we're changing our advising model, and I've been asked to work with the faculty role in that. So specifically the academic divisions, so math, science, technology, and humanities and social sciences.
Okay. When you talk about advising, are you talking about academic advising, what courses to take, success? I mean,
Yeah. So we've hired new success advisors. So they're trying to take away the advising for courses away from the faculty and give it more to the advisors, and have faculty be more mentors. And so my goal is to kind of flesh out those details and come up with a nice, I guess, protocol for that.
mm-hmm. Do you know Carmen Butler? You see emails coming from Gardner Webb from Carmen. She finished with us, I don't know, a year or so, 2 years ago. She finished the DEOL program. She does that similar kind of thing for Gardner Webb. Might be a good resource person if you need one. We'll keep that one in our back pocket for down
Did
the
you
road.
mention that name again?
Carmen Butler. CARMENBUTLER. Carmen Butler.
Okay.
She does that for Gardner Webb. She's in charge of all that area. She's associate dean. I think they'll appoint her dean, I believe. The fellow she worked for retired. So yeah, Carmen's the guru in that area. If she can't help you, she can find somebody who would be a good person to talk about if you need some help and support in that area.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And she being one of our graduates, she was mine, so she better help you. All right. Stacia.
Hello, my name is Stacia Harris. I'm the Director of Communications for Buncombe County Schools. And for my consultancy project, I'm doing a culture change project for Hickory Nut Gap Farms. We've had a couple of obviously weird roadblocks. The pandemic sort of messed up my timeline. And the organization has actually hired several consultants kind of as the months have gone on. And so I'm trying to find a space sort of in their process to kind of do my project. And actually, before we hop off, Dr. Lamb, I have a question about the survey that I need to send them.
Okay.
So I'll ask it when we're done. But anyway,
okay.
So yeah, that's correct.
Good. Okay. James?
Hello, everyone. My name is James Pittman. I am from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I am a career development coordinator with Johnston County Public Schools. My consultancy project is actually on to implement a literacy program for a high-impoverished area. And that high-impoverished area and community is Halifax County public schools here in the area. That is Halifax County was actually taken over by the state a couple of years ago, and so they're now just coming back into fruition. So we're going to do a K-6 literacy program with a company called A Better Chance, A Better Community Corporation, which is a nonprofit.
Okay. That sounds very interesting. We'll talk more about that one later. Reggie?
Good evening, everyone. Good to see all the Boiling Springs cohort. I remember doing that first weekend with you guys, so glad to see you all are doing well. I went through the MELS program as well, Dr. Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
Glad to be here. Still teaching in Richland 1, teaching media technology, background in television, video production, and digital media and technology. And my consultancy is helping a small media company startup. actually two of my former students. Their dad put them in my class specifically to get the company off the ground, and one is graduated and one is in his final year, and so I've been helping them with purchasing equipment and when they go on jobs. So it's going pretty well so far. They are starting to get jobs consistently, and they bring me out and I help when I can. So other than that, it's going pretty well. Other than
Good. Good. I like those entrepreneurial projects. Those are unique. They're a little different, but I'm glad that we're getting into some of those. That's good stuff. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, Jim Rennie, live in Rutherford, North Carolina. Retired Air Force. In the Air Force, I specialized in aviation and logistics. Spent some additional years working for the federal government and the military as a government civilian. I teach a undergraduate international relations course at Gardner-Webb, which is a lot of fun. Kind of a part-time job, which is good. From a consultancy project, I'm proposing a Center of Excellence for Leadership at Gardner-Webb. There are some great examples at some schools, University of Michigan, Rice University, all three service academies have them. One of the major challenges, assuming that people want to do this, is funding, which will be in both Michigan and Rice. It's some pretty well-endowed alums that wrote some pretty big checks. So it's still hypothetical, obviously, but it will be kind of fun to pursue that.
That's great. Again, in these difficult funding times at Gardner-Webb, I'm quite sure it'll have to be external funding, but it's still a worthy. The process itself is a worthy one. So glad that you're still on that path. Selena.
Good evening. I'm Selena English. I'm a chemist. I'm currently a lab manager at a biotech company at Fujifilm Diosynth. So we are actually working on one of the vaccines for COVID. My consultancy project is dealing with trying to implement a labeling process so that we can remove expired reagents from the lab in a timely manner so that that's not counted against us in internal or external audits. So I'm working on implementing that process.
That seems very interesting. Thank you. Lauren?
I'm Lauren McNeil, and I'm from Rock Hill. I currently work as a school counselor in Rock Hill School District. I'm doing my consultancy project with the startup company that provides case management in the form of community long-term care services to patients that are terminally ill. Kind of at a standstill with COVID going on, and my focus right now has been trying to be safe while I'm still working at school. So she and I are supposed to meet back up the end of this month and try to redirect where we're going.
Yeah, COVID has made those things difficult. So we all just have to be patient. But that sounds like you're in a good place there. Thank you. Make sure I get this right. Is it Shernay?
Right on. You better than Reggie. So, yeah, I'm Shernay Gerald from Charlotte. I am among a lot of things, but I am a change management consultant for one of the large banks in Charlotte. So I'm very tired right now. But also, as far as my consultancy is concerned, it is on that entrepreneurial track. So I am developing a nonprofit organization to assist women, particularly as the focus, particularly Black women and other women of color, with education and health needs and funds and support and everything like that. So, and it's going pretty well actually. So doing really well right now. So.
Okay, that sounds good. Very good. All right, got Stacia. Ricky? There he
Good
is.
evening, everybody. I'm
Good
I'm
evening, Ricky.
sorry. I had to mute myself because I had to go pick up my babies. But so I'm Ricky Johnson. I currently serve as an academic advisor slash coach at Johnson C. Smith for the Student Support Services Trio program there. And my consultancy project has been kind of hit hard
Yeah.
because of COVID. So my original plan was to come up with some strategies and methods to dismantle the school to prison pipeline. Because I do a lot of community work here in Forsyth County in Winston. But of course, the kids really haven't been in school for almost the last year, so they really can't get suspended because they're virtual. So I'm scheduling a meeting with Dr. Hamilton to see if I can still stick with that, to think through it. But my plan is to, kind of reimagine what education can look like through suspension, because a lot of things that they've told us that wasn't possible through education, they've been currently doing through the pandemic. So it's kind of like, you said that in the past, we're currently here, but how can we come up with strategies and methods for the future of education in K-12 in Forsyth County? So that's where I'm currently at with my
Yeah. So
project.
what you let me kind of jump ahead here. Maybe I'm on wrong track. So what you're talking about is doing something virtual as an alternative to suspension.
Something that's been on my mind, because I think we've discussed it in different groups with my cohort. It's like, the Reggie speaks to it all the time. Like the certain aspect has been there, it just hasn't been used. So it's kind of like, how can we learn from this pandemic to use, I guess, the virtual education to our advantage when it comes to suspension, so to speak, or reimagining it.
Yeah. That's for yeah. Well, that would be a worthy project as well, certainly. So that's a good one. All right, and last but not least, and again, apologize for the pronunciation, Bipasha. All right.
Hi, my name is Bipasha Tiwari, and I work as an HR specialist with a non-profit organization. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I work with a non-profit organization here in Charlotte, and my consultancy project is with a startup company. They have a hybrid job portal, and after a lot of projects, I was working with a lot of companies, but everything fell apart due to the COVID. So this is my last chance. So if this falls apart, which is looking like it will, because the person I was dealing with, he had some mishap in the family and he had to leave the country. So we are not in touch for the past 2 months. So I don't know. So I'm just hoping, I'm giving this month. If it doesn't work, then probably I'll have to find some other company. There is another company which is in line. So let's see. So that's my update.
Well, if you hadn't heard from 2 months, the working assumption would be is you're not going to. And so we may have to explore something else for you, certainly. But did I miss anybody? Did I get everybody? I think we got everybody. Again, welcome. I like the notion of putting these two groups together. It's a little different dynamic. We get to hear some different case studies. My last suggestion would be for you, and I was going to wait till next time we meet, but I'll go ahead and tell you tonight. If you'll notice under, let me share my screen one last time, and then we'll be done here. Under Blackboard, I have a link over here to previous Zoom video links, and it has case studies, recordings of previous case studies when people presented. So if you're not really sure in the end about what the expectation is, you can go through here and see what people have done in the past. And so here are recordings of previous sessions all the way up through this past spring. We didn't have a 738 this fall, and we don't ever teach 738 in the summer. So that's why, because something happened in the cycle, instead of having one in the fall and one in the spring, we've got 2 in the spring. So that's why we put you together. So, but the very last ones, and I've got some for the last 3 years here. You can look at these case studies and see what they did. If you're unsure about what the requirement is. So hopefully I have allayed your fears tonight, and some of you may be more fearful than you were before. Don't get caught up in the calculus piece of it. We'll work through that. It's not that difficult. It's the big rocks again that matter. And that's where we are. So I appreciate you all joining me tonight. I will see you on the 23rd from 9 to 1. We try to stay on schedule. I had an hour's worth of content tonight, and I had scheduled for us to be here as much as 2 hours, according to how many questions you had and going through our introductions and updates on your consultancy. But I see we've done 90 minutes tonight, which is very good. We don't meet just to meet. When we get through, we get through. So I'm through. Stacia, I'll stay on with you, but everybody else have a good evening. Thank you.
Sounds good. Good to see you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Dr. Lamb, the question that I had was the survey. So Hickory Nut Gap sort of put everything on ice while they started working with their big time consultant. Yeah. And I did my initial meeting with him, and I think you and I spoke before the meeting. Definitely kind of a slick talker, lots of like words and stuff. And I was trying to take notes. Anyway, it was hilarious. So the COO was excited about him, and I sort of left it as, you guys sort of figure out, paid guy, figure out kind of what's going on with you, what your goals are, and then I'm going to try to fit in my own sort of
in the gaps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so he said, well, we got to do some stuff, and let's circle back in December. And so I emailed them, and it took a little bit of time to get back to me. And so they're ready to move forward, and they want to send out that survey. And so I copied the survey to my Qualtrics account, but I am not allowed, I can make changes to it. And I need to go in and modify it because it says church, not organization. Right. But I tried to publish it, and I don't have the rights to publish it.
Okay, I can do that for you. What you need to, can you send it back to me?
I think
send
I can
it back to me,
it.
And then I do it, and then we send it out. It's just that simple. It takes 5 minutes.
That sounds good. So I'll change it, and I'll rename it. Denison Hickory Nut Gap.
That's right. And then send it back to me, and I'll fix it, and so that you can send it out, and the results that you'll be able to access them. Okay. I talked with Lucas about that 2 weeks ago, maybe. I met with him, and that's a new wrinkle that I wasn't aware of either. But because of the usage now that so many people are now using it, they've had to throw that in there.
Right. Okay.
So he walked me through that, so it won't take but a minute. So whenever you're ready, I'll get it back to you.
And the CEO also said something about he's excited to see my communications plan for the survey. And I was like, I don't know no communications plan, but I'll summarize sort of what I think it's supposed to measure and why it's a good tool. So I might kind of write all that up and send it to you to look over before I send to him, so I don't look like an idiot. And then we'll send it off. And
sounds good.
Okay.
That's basically methodology is what that is. And so, yeah.
Perfect. That sounds good. All right. I'll do it, and we'll be in touch via email. And I'll try to work on that survey and do the updates over the weekend, and I'll copy the new one to you.
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good night.